Hi everybody, welcome to Backstage Industry Pass, where we took a peek behind the curtains of what's happening in industry. And as usual, we're joined by Edwin Almeida and Genevieve Carrier. How you going, guys?
Hey Edwin.
How you going?
Very well, mate. First off the mark, I mean, brilliant job on DFA the other night with the live Q&A. Really good work.
Pumping.
Well, I think we broke the record. We broke the record of some sort, and there's a very generous man, Cookie Boy, is going to be donating some money to charity, which is great.
Yeah, that's great that we hit that, Marley. It was just over 1,600.
Yeah.
Yeah, 16. Speaking with Martin, he said at one stage it was 1,657.
Oh, mate, well done.
Excellent work.
They're numbers we only dream of.
I'm going to ask for $10 for everyone next time.
I don't know how deep are Cookie Boy's pockets.
well, who's paying?
Excellent.
I will have the hedonic brick that we can promote next week.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about the
like
silver
one of these ones, mate.
yeah.
Wherever it is. Like
the silver to toilet roll ratio.
Yeah, silver to roll ratio.
Okay, so let's get into it. So we're going to do a bit of a debrief on your Q&A session from the other day, but I thought I found a little bit of video that might be a really good analogy of what's happening with the government stimulus package. So just have a look at this. So I've got to say, no elderly Europeans were injured in that video.
I tell you who's going to be injured in the stimulus package here are the first home buyers. They're going to be absolutely massacred. It's going to be a bloodbath, and on the other side of that seesaw, it's going to be the retirees. That are absolutely getting hammered at the moment because I guess the government doesn't see them as contributors into the economy anymore because one, they're not paying taxes, they're not working. They're living off their savings, and the interest on their savings is diminishing by the week. So the next thing is going to, as I keep on saying, is watch this space, because that's one of the many groups of people that are going to start dumping the properties or putting the properties on the market for sale. And as you've seen today in my tweets, the numbers keep on going up. They're not going backwards. It's winter, and we're not regressing or retreating in numbers. We're actually going up, and freestanding homes is what I'm keeping an eye on. And I think tonight we've already broken the 8,500 mark on freestanding homes for sale in the Sydney region. Yeah,
so I got your tweet here. I'll just pull it up on the screen. So you were talking about are we sort of heading closer to 9,000? I've actually got the picture you tweet out there a little bit clearer. So we can see there's 18,000 odd properties for sale in the Sydney region, and as you said, about 8,500 of those are housing. I mean, you touched on this the other night with Martin. Sort of what are the consequences of this rising number, particularly the fact that we're still in winter?
Well, typically what happens in winter is listing numbers regress. So theoretically, we should be 15 to 20% below what we start winter at, especially halfway through winter, below the starting point. And the starting point, as we hit winter, we were already edging closer to 18,000. So we should have regressed to about probably 16,000 listings in the Sydney region. That's excluding the under offer. And as I said in Martin's podcast, also in Martin's show, I use the domain numbers because it paints the Sydney region a lot better than REA do, and a number of the other websites. It's more centralized, and they use that as a benchmark for a few years now, and I'll continue to use it. It gives us a good indicator. Most of the agents now use domain as well as REA anyway. So based on these numbers, we should have been anywhere in the mid 16,000, but I fear that by the time we get to spring, we're already going to be close to 20,000, and then when we hit spring, we're going to get an absolute deluge of listings come on market. My colleagues and my partner, they monitor WeChat, the investment groups in property groups in WeChat, and the common thread in the property groups is that they themselves are fearful that a lot of their colleagues are going to be placing the properties on the market because they're not getting the rental income. Students aren't coming back, so they're not renting the homes, particularly the homes, which is what's attracting me a lot on at the moment. The homes that were used as boarding houses, that were used as multiple rentals or rentals per room or per person if they were boarding houses, if the people provided some sort of food as well as accommodation. So these are now running empty. The people still have to pay the mortgages, and as soon as the interest holiday stops with the banks and all these other stimulus packages they stop with from the government, then there's going to be a deluge, and a lot of these groups are already talking about spring being the time, which I've pegged it anyway, that we could end up with about 25,000 listings on market relatively quickly. Now, that's just a cliffhanger property fall as far as I'm concerned, because you might have one or two in your area to choose from, but by the time we get to spring, you'll have 15, 20 to choose from. So buyers are going to be are not as readily, the numbers aren't increasing, but buyers are going to have a lot of choice, and they're going to take the time in buying. So the more time it takes for a property to sell, the only incentive for the vendor to sell is the only mechanisms that are mainly applied for the vendor to sell are to continue to price it lower than all others around, or like property around, in order to get a quick sale. And also comes back to motivation as well. How motivated are people going to be? And I'd say that a lot of people are going to be very, very motivated to sell, and they're prepared to take a hit.
That sounds like The Big Short. I haven't got a copy of that, but then she's going through and she's got the guys in the back who's saying, "Oh yes, we've got a lot of motivated sellers." And it's like, yeah, you've got a problem on your hands, lady. And I just remember listening to docos on the Irish housing bubble burst, and there was a lot of chat in the media talking about a soft landing. That was their word, soft landing. But hey, if it's going, so as you said, a cliff drop, or is it going to be this nice, gentle unwinding? But what do we find? We've had just a couple of videos for you, Edwin.
Yeah, okay. So if you're talking about Edwin's scenario, we might have a look at that video, and that's going to be the cliff drop. So, oh.
So is the coyote sucker? Is the coyote sucker and the roadrunner sucker and the coyote the first time buyers that have just been conned into purchasing property with the extra loan?
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah. You kind of feel sorry for them. Oh gosh, I don't know, but you just sort of think, well, come on, smarten up.
Got to do a bit of your own
But they're
research.
just fed so much crap, to be honest, and they're fed so much marketing and get on board, it's too late. They're trying to keep the FOMO. But so that was option A.
Oh, you want to see
Off
option
a cliff.
B?
Yeah, we got an option B.
Let's look at option B.
So option B is probably just not quite as dramatic, but I wouldn't call it gentle by any stretch of the imagination.
The greatest thrill of my life! I'm king of the world! Woohoo!
And I think that skateboard was the coronavirus.
It sort of reminds me. I like watching a lot of fight videos and the boxing videos, and especially from the old greats, and I often, as I start watching them and I sit there, I sort of want to, if I was on the other side of Mike Tyson or Ali or any of the greats there, Fanick, whoever, do I prefer to be knocked out in round one, but preferably in the first minute, or do I slug it out all the way to all the way to the end? And oftentimes I prefer to go down in the first minute.
I saw a UFC fight the other day. They had an 8-second fight. It was basically came up, 2 punches down, that was it. So yeah, I know what you're talking about.
How much damage? That's the thing, though, isn't it? Yeah. It's like, how much damage do you want to walk away with? And it's like you're gonna, and you walk into the fight, you have to realize it's going to hurt. And then how do you want to draw this out, or do you just want to rip the Band-Aid off and then just deal with what you've got, and then you just take stock, look at your whole position, how can you get out of it, or what can you do for your debt position, and all
off and move on.
Yeah, I know. That's
it's hard. I mean, I'm also reminded of the time I was in I was lifting a compressor off a roof, and I went through the roof trusses and holding onto the compressor, and it was like it sort of happened relatively quick, but at the same time, as I was falling through. And everything was coming down on top of me. I just it was all in slow motion. I just wanted to come to an end, so someone can pick me up, so the carpenter can pick me up and take me to the hospital. It was just, and I feel that a lot of the times these people, it's so painful. I mean, there are more and more ads online that I'm noticing in different parts of Sydney where it's saying the property must be sold, instructions to sell. There's some examples. Some of the followers on Twitter have also posted out that agents are also basing out sold within 3 days of a campaign, and albeit in that case it was they got more than what they were wanting for the property. But I'm seeing more and more here in Sydney, and as I talk to different agents in different parts of Sydney, and I ask them as to the reasons for the sale or the heading or whatever, as in areas that I'm looking for some clients, and they're forthcoming most of the time, and they tell me typically it's because parties are going their separate ways, and it's a settlement, or they've committed elsewhere. But most of the time, it's a financial situation. So, but the sooner they get out, the better in my books, because and in theirs, because otherwise it's just going to be a slow death as the equities dwindle away.
And is that with those? So let's say broken relationships and that sort of thing. Is that are those the investment properties that they're offloading, or is their family homes? Or it could be a bit of everything.
Oh, it's a bit of everything at the moment. It's a mix. What I am seeing a lot of, and are the homes that are coming on are investment properties, and I see them in regions where they were, as I said in Martin's show, where the people that bought these homes, that bought them for the purposes of not renting it out as a long-term rental, like as a house, but renting it out as a student accommodation or semi-boarding house, or what we call an illegal boarding house, and where they charge per person or per room. Most of the cases they charge per person because they put 2 individuals in each room, and the homes are typically 4, 5 or 6 bedrooms, and they convert the garage into another bedroom as well.
Wow. Yeah. There were a couple of things to come out of your show. When was it? Tuesday night?
Number one, what's going on there, mate?
Martin was alluding to possibly having either somebody from the REA or that other lady that he had on, that other buyer's agent that he had on, saying that surging listing numbers is not going to affect the prices in Sydney. So I was just ready. I didn't know who was going to come on. I was just ready. I was like, knowing Martin, he could have even bought on the hedonic. Then he would have been on. Then I would have had to go, run inside and get a baseball bat, and God knows what else.
I reckon we should do. The thing like Boris Johnson did when he was, punching through his like foam wall with a forklift or whatever it is. Maybe we'll set up something like that, CoreLogic, hedonic, and then just power on through it.
We'll just get Edwin, tool him up, and he can just attack an effigy.
Paper mache CoreLogic brick. And it was a little bit made of your call on 30 to 60% drop. And is that sort of like an across the board? Do you want to go sort of just maybe have a go into that a little deeper? Is that sort of Sydney? Is that across the board? Capital city?
Look, I'm predominantly looking at the Sydney market, but whatever happens in Sydney is somewhat reflected in a lot of other parts of Australia anyway. There are some parts obviously that have already dropped by 57% and more, and over the years, and they'll continue to drop. I don't think they're going to drop much more than another 10% or something, but it's still going down in those regions. But when I talk my figures, I'm basically alluding to what I can see happening predominantly in the Sydney region. Obviously, as I said, there are 30 to 60%, because in some areas, some newly established areas, you've got, especially where there's a lot of this promotion for these home and land packages out in the west, southwest, the northwest regions, where you're building these monstrosities on 275 square meters of land, and you're calling them freestanding homes. Back in the day, they used to be called townhouses. I used to sell real estate in those regions, and even the townhouses had bigger parcels of land than what these freestanding blocks have, and you're paying upwards of $750, $800, $850. $1,000, and all because of this BS stimulus packages that the state and federal government have pumping out like crazy, and basically putting a noose around people's necks to go out and commit in order to so-called keep construction ticking away and keep the tradies on board. I mean, that's a good thing, but I think you're gonna have a better stimulus package if you start building some real infrastructure out that way in the first instance, because and you've got no infrastructure. So my thing is
sorry. I was just going to say, out at Box Hill, which is beyond Rouse Hill. So you've got the Rouse Hill town centre, and that's about the biggest thing that's sort of been built out here. It's got the driverless train going through it. It's a big sort of open plan, open air shopping centre and those sorts of things. But there's all this stuff about there's not enough schools there, and there's when you talked about that 275 square metre block. I went out there and had a look, and just out of curiosity, the kids ran through the display home going, oh, this would be my room, this would be my room. It's so funny. But all of that was just reclaimed paddocks not that long ago, like 5 years ago. And there was one, I think it's the Gables, is a development. And that's was land owned by Celestino Bayarda, who is Bayarda Poultry. Chicken. He's a chicken farming man, and he bought up a lot of land. Good thinking. And then you get these tiny blocks, and it's hot as hell, and it's as cold as Antarctica in the winter and as hot as Hades in the summer.
Talking to two people that lived out there, so we know what
we
it's
went
like.
to uni. We went to uni at Richmond, and it's it's just.
It's hot and it's cold.
There's so much nicer places to live. Anyway, it's hot. And you
probably wore gumboots throughout most of the year, because a lot of those lands were floodplains, and they would be flooded when you raised it. Flooded.
Yeah, as Jen said, a
Yeah,
lot of
that's
turf
where-
farms because there's a lot of
turf
water
farms.
sitting there.
Yep, that's where grass grows lovely, and they roll up the turf and whatever. And often Windsor was cut off, so they had to build a big bridge to get around that big floodplain and that sort of stuff. So you've got all of that. And yeah, these houses on 275 square meters, but it's mandated that you have to have a 4-bedroom house on it. That's like,
Look, and these are the properties that usually fall off the perch, because and then you've got homes that are closer to the Kellyville North, closer to Kellyville Ridge, and you start moving closer to Quakers Hill and so forth, and you're gonna get established homes on 500, 550, 600, 640, even 700 in some cases square meters of land, which are also dropping in value, but at least they'll hold some value, because when you're comparing it to these new homes further out on 275 square meters, and the other thing is we haven't ran out of land, folks, and also there's already a truckload of property out there that is vacant, and there's people continue to build, and a lot of them weren't built to be occupied. A lot of them were also sold to Chinese investors. I know a number of groups that sold a lot of properties there to Chinese investors. I mean, I think there's about 3,000 apartments that are going to be built around Schofield. The new Schofield railway station. 3,000. Who are you going to get to live there? Who are you going to get to move there? I mean, this is the craziness of what's going on. And then for people to tell me that property values are only going to drop by 10% or 12% across it, I mean, I'm already negotiating for some clients' properties around the Kellyville area in the older Kellyville parts, and Winston Hills, Borkham Hills, and these areas. We're already negotiating on property at we're back at 2014 prices, 2015 prices, just a little bit above is the asking guide, and we're negotiating below what people bought those properties for in 2014, 2015, and this is just the beginning. So, albeit that we're obviously making offers below the guides and substantially lower than the guides, and looking at getting in a lot lower than what your average Joe is buying property there for, and much lower and much more much better quality of property, of construction, of location and infrastructure than all these dog boxes, shoe boxes that are being built in Schofield, Box Hill, and all these other regions further afield on old floodplains.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
The only time you go out there is if you wanted a cow, you're going to the airfield at Schofield. I mean, I just don't know why you go and buy a box up in the air. In an apartment.
You know, at Riverston, Rivo knows to its locals, but there's an abattoir there. Like I don't know. It's just an odd pick. And I was also going to say, like in and around there, when you get off, because they redid Windsor Road out to Windsor and Richmond, but off to the side where they're doing all this building, it's goat tracks. Like you could hit something like the roads. You've got what do you call it when the road just
ruts?
Corrugation. Yeah, but potholes. Water erosion, potholes. You'd be lucky to pass a truck. They really are goat tracks around there. They're just back roads. They're not built for people coming and going to work or school or buses or.
No, like you said, there's no real infrastructure there. There's no real industry out that way. People travel closer to the city to work anyway. So now, going back to the 30 to 60%. So you've got particular types of dwellings that obviously get closer to 60%, and they're going to be predominantly your apartments, your high rise, where a lot of them got built and sold for Asian interest, and they're just not getting any rental incomes, and a lot of people are just going to offload them, and they're going to offload them for whatever they take, and banks will more than likely take over a lot of these unfinished projects as well. So you're going to have that. You're going to have your mix of properties out out in these subdivisions that are being sold to the first home buyers. Now, let's not forget, these are properties that have to be built. So therefore, it could potentially take another anywhere between 6 to 12 months to 18 months for these properties to complete. And God only knows what sort of economic strife we're going to be facing and what the unemployment rate is going to be in 6, 12 or 18 months. Yeah. And so you might have the money to put a deposit, but as I always say, it's not about buying a property, it's about being able to settle on a property. So a lot of these poor bastards won't be able to settle because between now and completion, they're going to be they may be out of a job. There's going to be economic stress, brings about relationship stress and strain, and you end up with a spike in divorces, in separations, and that brings on its own issues, its own economic and social issues. So you've got all these things that are yet to unwind. We've only just really started to walk into the recession, if not the depression that we're going to go into. We're only at the door. And yet people are making decisions because of this belief that we were going to have a V-shaped recovery and that things weren't going to take us long. Look at what's happening down in Victoria now. I mean, the second lockdown moving into stage 4. Look at the Sydney venues that are already closing down and how things are. This thing's taking hold of different areas of Sydney, and then you look further afield and you look at Queensland and so it's.
Did you
today we've got COVID-19 that we've got to deal with, and it brings about its own economic stresses. Then, as I said, unless there's a vaccine, unless you and I, we've talked about it. Unless there's a vaccine, there's a long way to go. And then even if moving forward, again, as I said on Martin's show, we've got today we've got COVID-19. Tomorrow we'll have COVID-21. Next year we might have COVID-25, COVID-30, and so on. And it's a watch and see. But the thing is, throwing money at construction, throwing money at building. An oversupply of property, that's what it is. It's an oversupply, and it is not the answer. The answer, I feel, should be more to structured and infrastructure that will create the industry that will sustain the population of the East Coast. And we'll keep these tradies that the government wants to keep employed.
Not the only people. I mean, we've got a lot of people who are just out of all sorts of jobs, and
entertainment industry.
Well, entertainment, just everything. But where is the support for small business, which is meant to be the engine room of employment? And it's just they're just not doing anything.
No.
Really?
I mean, that's a nice line to throw out at a press conference, but I think the actions speak where the money's going.
Look at what they do, not what they say.
Yeah. So, and I mean, that's quite evident that that's not going to happen. And just going back to your point, Edwin, about the vaccine.
Yeah.
Now, Jen and I hold the opinion that we're not likely to get an actual definitive vaccine that's going to cause long-lasting antigen production in your system. It's going to stop it. It's going to be more like the flu. They'll come up with something that'll work this year, and then 2 years' time it'll stop working, or a year's time it'll stop working, and you'll get another one, and it'll be a management exercise. But just thinking about that, if we're heading towards 9,000 plus houses that are going to be for sale or listed, and someone turns around and say Gilead or someone like that turns around and says, we've got a vaccine, even though I don't believe it'll actually be working, do you think that will cause a spike in confidence? Is that going to do anything if someone turns around and says, we've got a vaccine, even though it may not be as effective? Is this sort of I guess it's the
con game.
Yeah, or the confidence game, for want of a better term. Yes, exactly.
Well, look, I think that the confidence is going to be, or the con game is going to be, magnified. With the first home buyers, because a lot of it's based on new construction. The stimulus there, or the government's answer to all this is to keep the tradies in the job. which is a good thing. You keep them in the job. But what's going to happen is we're going to get a glut of properties on market, because first home buyers that would have otherwise saved a little bit more, or tightened the belts a little bit more, or if there was a different way to assist a first home buyer to buy existing homes that are and there's a lot more property that is vacant than what's listed on the market for sale. Martin and I have spoken about for quite a while with regard to the 1.2 million properties that are vacant around Australia. Most of them are in the East Coast, and a large portion of those are in Sydney and Melbourne. So you've got all this. We're going to be building new. So what's going to happen with the existing property that's on the market for sale? People are going to be turned away from buying those, because if you do a quick exercise, and if you compare a house that's on the market for sale out in these regions that's at $700,000, let's say, and albeit, let's say that you didn't have to pay the stamp duty and you could buy it, right? But people are going to opt to get the $800,000 house further afield, because it's brand new, because people gravitate towards the shiny new. Now, all that shines is not necessarily gold. So, but we get people, our eye catches all that sparkly, glittery stuff. So people will gravitate towards that. But by the time you end up with the product, you've got an established dwelling that was 1 or 2 years old, that was on the market at 700, and then you've got this new glossy building that's fresh at 800,000. Albeit you've got anywhere between 50 and 70,000 that the government helped you or put into the purchase of the 800, but that dwelling is not going to be worth 800 at the end of the day. That dwelling's going to be worth a hell of a lot less than the established house that you would have otherwise got for 720. Why? Because the $700,000 established home, albeit it was only 1 or 2 years old, is on a block of land that's closer to the 450 square meters. So land holds greater value than the dwelling itself. And then when you start comparing apples with apples, you start seeing that the fixtures and fittings of these new dwellings aren't as good as the fixtures and fittings of the older dwellings. I mean, and that's what we talk about. That's what we talk about over and over again as well. And that's all the stuff that's you go to some neat homes around closer to Parramatta, let's say Winston Hills, Borkham Hills, and Northmead, Westmead, and all these areas. And there are some really nice, neat, tidy homes that were built in the 70s, early 70s, mid 70s, early 80s, and the fixtures and fittings, stood the test of time. And there are some really neat properties on blocks of land, on 700, 750, 690, and the brick veneer. They may just need a coat of paint and change the flooring and change the kitchen and so forth. But I mean, a lot of it's really just cosmetic work, and you've got a better product than what you have out in the middle of nowhere for 800, and you can now pick these properties up for just under $1 million now.
So you're sort of getting better bones, bigger land, and just better materials. Because I know that I have a friend who's a builder, and that, but there's been a lot of cost cutting in materials because it's very expensive. So you got labour is very expensive and materials are very expensive, and so they're really got to be really careful when you get your estimates and your quotes, because you might be thinking you're getting the really good window, but what actually happens is you don't get the really good window, you get the really not very expensive window, but it's in there now, and you just go, oh well, it's
with all the free money, that's what generally happens anyway. So, and this is what I'm saying. So all these properties further out west are the ones that are gonna really suffer, and we're talking about freestanding homes. They're gonna drop in value, anywhere up to 40, 50%, because at the end of the day, that's all they're worth. That's all the work. Everything else that's being added on to what these $800,000 dwellings that are being flogged off to first home buyers, to the first home suckers, that the spruikers, and most of them are spruiked toward the first home buyers anyway, is they don't realise is that the marketing agents or the selling agents are getting a 10% commission, up to 10% commission on these things, and there's a lot of money that's not even part of the land or the construction costs. A lot of it's in commissions and fees and backhanders and the like. So take away 10% from that, and you start generally talking about what the values of land and construction. But even in there, it's all dodgy numbers anyway. So hence the reason why I don't hesitate to say that, in some dwellings, a lot of dwellings, we're going to see closer to 60, but others with 30, and the 30 is more in the established areas where there is infrastructure. The homes have been kept, well. They're on very large parcels of land, and predominantly because they've also got very long-lasting infrastructure around them. So
that's what I mean. When you talked about before about Borkham Hills, Winston Hills versus Box Hill, Kellyville, and whatever, but you've got the end of the M2 sitting there. The M4 is not very far away. You've really got that sort of amenity to getting in and out and around. There is all of that. You really,
the interesting, one of the interesting things, even in Chatswood, as we've been going around there and doing a lot of reconnaissance around the North Shore area for clients, and the conversations with obviously with the people that speak Mandarin and Cantonese, in the conversations that we pick up that they have on the side, not realizing that we understand what they're saying. And it's really funny the things that go on and what they're saying, because in one particular case, I'll tell you this one really quickly. That one particular case, the agent was looking at one party said to the other party that was standing next to us, and one party said to the other party, "Oh, so what does the owner what does the owner want?" And it says, "Oh, they're looking at 2.8," and the other party says turns around and says 2.8. So this isn't worth more than 2 million. And then the other guy comes back and says, "Yeah, I know, but when you got 8 months ago, and this is in Cantonese. They said 8 months ago, 8 to 12 months ago, if you put any poop box on the main road in Chatswood, would have got 3.5 million, because people from mainland China were coming in and were just paying silly dollars, but they're not coming, they're not here, and the owner's got to come to terms with the fact that this property isn't worth more than 2 million. So, but that's the stuff that was going on. So how long before that happens again? So it's not just the west, it's the north. There'll be areas in the eastern suburbs. There'll be areas in the southern Shire. That'll different events or different circumstances will make properties tumble. Across the board, across Sydney, one of the things that I'm keeping an eye on is, as I say, is the retirees that have to sell. There are groups of people that have to sell, and have to sell established homes that were bought 20, 30, 40, even 50 years ago. They will have to start offloading them in order to fund for their retirement, because the bank savings are not paying for their retirement anymore. And the government's certainly not looking after the retirees, because they are no longer contributing taxes. So they're going to have to sell, and they're all over Sydney, folks. And this is why I'm keeping an eye on the established homes. And then you've got obviously the homes that were converted into boarding houses and the like, and then you've got homes that relationship breakups. So there's a whole number of groups of people that are going to have to sell, albeit the government and the banks trying to facilitate them or help them and assist them not to sell or not to dump the property. But you know what? There's only so much they can do as well, because these people have still got to eat. They can't live on the bank dividends or the interest that the $1 million is getting in whilst they keep it in the bank vaults, which is probably $10,000 a year. They can't survive on that when they've got to upkeep a house that's 40, 50 years old. Maintenance is a lot of, to maintain a house is it's a lot of money. As much as people would like to think otherwise, it costs a lot.
And they're not they don't have that capability like, 20 years ago. You might have, the husband might have been able to get up on the ladder and do some of the work themselves, part of that maintenance, that sort of thing. And then 20 years later, and it's like, you shouldn't be up ladders and doing that. And it's physical work and it's hard work, and even mowing and just that. Even
look, a year ago, a friend of mine, his in-law wanted to save a couple of $100 and not call a roofer to fix a tile, a broken tile in a single-story house, and decided to go up the ladder. I think it's 74 or 75. Slipped, fell over. 2 days later, he's dead.
Oh dear.
So look, and I totally agree with you, Jen, on that. Is that it's an age group that they can't maintain the homes anymore, and it's easy for them to sell. And don't forget, they bought these houses when they were perhaps at 150,000, perhaps even less. And they've kept them neat and tidy, and now in some cases they're worth 1.2, 1.3 million, maybe even 1.5. So for them to lose 5%. Or have the perception of losing 5 or 10% now is a better option than thinking that they could lose 20, 30% further down the track as the economy worsens.
Yeah, they're going to be very motivated.
Yeah.
And I was just going to say, when you're talking about family situations, husband and wife, say, or even if you're just a de facto relationship, and perhaps, and I know you brought this up, Edwin, before, is that a lot of, say, small businesses have been started up with funding backed by housing. And so those small businesses, which we all know are just hitting the wall at the moment, and will continue to do so as we move beyond the reductions in JobKeeper and those sorts of things. People already know, and they just, and if you had a couple of employees, you have that really close relationship, and you don't want to let them go. It's pretty crappy. And so, but it just comes a point where it's like, we just can't keep going. You've got to wind it up. I was just having a look at some information. This was from an insolvency business, and they were talking about so from a sort of the legal sort of side of it, you need a majority of shareholders to call insolvency sort of meeting in your company. Often they are in a company, and you've got a husband and a wife or a 50-50 shareholder, and but they also said if there's only 2 shareholders, a majority isn't one, right? So you have to have both parties agree to wind up that joint venture that you had, for many years, and then you've had all of the mortgage stress or all of that stress and whatever come down on you, the relationship's broken up, but you might have like one half of the relationship going, no, we've got to hang on to the business, put all this work in, I've got all this invested in equipment or tools or whatever it is, and you got the other one going, no, we've got to cut this, and I don't want to live with you anymore, we have to sort out our lives, I want to move on. And you can't take advantage of even that. So there's also this yet to come through, which is the mechanics of dissolving businesses and marriages and relationships, and geez, it's messy.
Yeah, and out of the 700,000 loans or thereabouts, you got to ask yourself the question: how many of those loans? Mortgages have got that are on a holiday, or as I call it, on a honeymoon. how many have got credit cards attached to them, how many have got business overdrafts attached to them. And look, there's a lot to play out. As I said, I think I'm already seeing in a number of regions of Sydney, encompassing quite a big amount of suburbs, where I'm seeing drops of anywhere from 9 right up to 12, 13, 14% already. So regardless of the fact whether or not the hedonic reports it, at the end of the day, it's happening, and even if it takes 90 days for the hedonic to report it, so be it. But I'm already seeing it, and that's my call. 30 to 60%.
Sounds fair enough to me.
Yeah.
I think you're bang on. If not, it could even go more. I think someone was saying on Twitter the other day, Ireland actually from top to bottom, and these things do take a long way to play out, but 80%. So I mean, and then you had Japan and all of that too. This, to think that we are different. No, we're in a worse position. And I was just thinking after watching your live show with Martin the other day, and as I was just thinking this really big takeaway was, gone are the days of the armchair speculator who sat there of a morning and, look at this property in Tassie or whatever it was, or Brisbane, and it's sort of like, you've really, if you're serious, you've got to get off your backside and you've got to attend auctions as you do. You've really got to know the suburb, who are the people, what are the schools like. It requires research. So, one of the days of this, can't lose attitude, and that's what.
But it's not only that though, Jen. It's also the fact that a lot of these people and a lot of the so-called professionals are pushing the BS of pain and gain reports in particular suburbs that CoreLogic put out and all this. I mean, you got to question the data. The data is very, very questionable. I mean, I make a joke of it on Twitter, and I keep on going, going at them, because it's a fallacy, it's a travesty, it's almost criminal, you could say. And the reports and the so-called property expert reporters that pick and choose what they want to report on, when as a matter of fact they should be reporting and giving us the facts, or giving the general public the facts of what's going on. I mean, there's a lot of underquoting going on at the moment. They should be calling agents out on the underquoting of putting price guides in certain areas of properties at $900,000 when the house next door, being a duplex next door 2 months ago, sold for $1.3 million. That sort of crap is what needs to be called out. But these so-called property reporters on Domain, on REA, and some other major publications, just want the tickle and giggle stories, the feel good stories of look at how this property got 200,000 or 20% above reserve, or 300,000 above reserve. I mean, there was one not too long ago that we did that when we did one of our earlier shows, and about Punch Bowl, with that house, that I think it was Punch Bowl, where that property got sold for some double the amount of what the reserve, or what the reserve was, and the auctioneer and the agents were beating their chest. And when everybody should be calling out the underquoting and asking themselves and saying, it's either one or two things. It's either underquoted, or the agent just didn't know the value of the property. And why would you want to trust this agent to sell your house if they didn't know the true value? What if somebody only paid $50,000 more than what the reserve was? How much more would the owner have lost? Or not, that the owner wouldn't have known that they lost that kind of money. All these sort of shenanigans that go on, not disclosing prices. The CoreLogic predictive index, the hedonic index, being so far out of whack and so far out of line, they report on what they want to report. Selective data reporting, number crunching in order to report a narrative that things are moving downwards really slowly. I'm not seeing that. What I'm seeing is listing numbers going up, freestanding home numbers for sale in the Sydney region going up, prices going down a lot quicker, more people in financial stress, in relationship strains, and other things that I'm noting and keeping a close ear to the ground on is also the criminality or the vagrancy with regard when we get to these economic downturns, and all of a sudden factories and shops and businesses and even residencies start going up in flames, and pretty soon you'll see reports of sports cars and high value vehicles reportedly with what's it called spontaneously combusting all over Sydney because they get more for the insurance payout than what the thing's worth.
It'll be a spate of bad luck, mate.
Saturn was in front of Jupiter or something. And on that, of a builder the other day who just had his ute ripped off, and it wasn't the ute that he's concerned about, it was all the tools in there. And the insurance just didn't cover what he lost.
Well, he had it insured for much less because of the cost of the insurance. So he couldn't afford to insure all of his tools as he needed. So that's, part of the problem too.
And that was sort of Midwest suburb.
Yeah, mid-inner west,
yeah. So, we've got to keep our wits about us.
But speaking of the funny numbers you were talking about, you sent through a couple of slides before of some properties and sort of what was going on there. Do you want to touch on those, Edwin?
Yeah, sure.
Whereabouts do you want to
just you can show up the ones that the Chatswood West ones, the ones that are so you've got two sales in Chatswood West that as of yesterday they still had not been amended on the CoreLogic hedonic predictive price guide section. And these properties basically, one was sold a week and a half ago and the other one was sold about 6 weeks ago, and they haven't been updated. The sales prices haven't been updated, given the fact that they got sold a while ago, and it's and they're far away from the actual sale prices. If you go to the other ones that I sent you, Lee.
Yep.
So, and then you've got last week's auction results, where properties that sold above the hedonic predictive index. You can show the next one. Just show those three, one after the other.
So
you can show the next. Show the next one. Yeah, and the one after.
It was the one at Kellyville.
No, there's some that have actually got sold. No, take that one out. Yeah, just the previous ones. So basically, that one there. So you've got recent sales that aren't even registered with the Valuer General's office, and you've got what you've got there is you've already got them registered on the back end of CoreLogic, and these are why, because typically the sales prices at auction or on or before auction are either within a small margin of the predictive guide, the hedonic predictive guide, or typically would be above the predictive guide, which is basically where they get the figures for the hedonic daily index. That they come up with the daily movement in property values across basically across all capital cities. So if they can do that for these results from a week ago, why can't they do it with results that are showing a difference in achieved prices on the day of auctions, or post auctions, of anywhere between 12% to 27%, 30%. So there you go. There's your. This is how you catch these. I was going to say bastards. I'm glad I didn't say bastards, but I guess I've already said it.
So it's the hedonic index can only work with the inputs that go into it.
Well, as they say, good data in, good data out. Shit data in, shit data out.
Yeah. And then you've got experts that other experts that my mate Martin has on his show, other buyer's agent experts that rely on the pain and gain from each suburb, and that's how they get people to assist people in buying property when that data is so ill informed and ill reported.
That's how that index works. It needs to be timely and it needs to be accurate data. And then the thing is a useful tool for doing research. But if it's not timely and it's not accurate, it's completely pointless. And so you have to, if you were going to do it, you've got to say, I've got to ignore this. I'm going to ignore the pain and gain. I'm going to ignore the predictions. And you just got to get out, ring on the phone, talk to agents, be at the auctions, see, was it, as you've said, at your live auction calls, I love those. And then, are the bidders being goaded? How fair dinkum is it?
Well, I find it incredible that when you report that people are bidding against themselves.
When they get pushed to, Melanie and I, we have a ball when we're at the North Shore. We absolutely go crazy. It's a fun day out. It's a fun day out as to what happens there, and we've already pegged certain auctioneers and we've already pegged certain agents as to their antics, and we just sort of, we have running bets as to who says what and at what time in what particular part of the auction, and we've also identified your professional bidders in our region. We've already identified some professional bidders that we see them used by different agents, and they start the bidding, and then all of a sudden they're the first one, and they are the winning bid, albeit the property gets passed in with the vendor's bid, but they are the highest bid to get the auction going, and then they're the first ones to run out from the auction. I mean, this is the sort of stuff that Fair Trade in New South Wales should be all over like a rash. And then we talk to the neighbours of these properties and ask them what or they tell us what the neighbours tell us what the owners are really looking for, and the price guides of the agents' price guides are here, and what the owner wants for the property is up here. And that sort of stuff, that's all the underquoting stuff, and that should be. So I'm doing the work of the hedonic, I'm doing the work of the reporters from Domain and AFR and REA, but unfortunately I don't get paid for that sort of work. But I guess my payment is the laughs that I get on Twitter.
I'll get you a new hat rack, mate, for all those hats you're wearing. All right, well, we might leave it there. We'll take a quick break and we'll come back with a very exciting look at the Rentable Score app. And I think Jen, you want to have a quick say about silver and gold as well. So we'll be back in just a second.